Well, so we start every time with why did you choose the University of Texas? How did you end up here?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah, we're going.
We're going.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd say probably two reasons. The first and most important was my dad, my hero. He played football at UT.
Okay.
He brought me to a Texas OU game when I was like 10 or 11, and I was just mesmerized. Then he came down. We were going to Galveston. We stopped. For some reason, we came through Austin. We went down on the field, threw the ball around when I was like 13. And that was the main reason. But then the other reason was in the spring of 1984. So literally 41 years ago this month, I came down with a buddy of mine to an event called Roundup.
Yep.
Okay. And I mean, I stayed at the Fiji house with these guys. They set me up with these beautiful one girl from Houston, some girl from, I can't remember the other city, but I was just like, okay, that's it. I'm going to that place.
That place sounds fun.
That place was fun. And I was like, yep, that's home. So,
and you were in the School of Liberal Arts?
I came in, so just full disclosure, I was not necessarily the best student, academic, okay? So I went to a small high school, Jesuit High School, Shreveport, Louisiana. And when I came in from out of state, I had to go through a program called the provisional program. So at the time, so you took 12 hours during the summer. 2 classes the first 6 weeks, 2 classes the last 6 weeks, and you had to make maybe a 3.0 or better, or 2.5, I think it was. So I took the classes, and I made 3 A's and a C, and got accepted, and there I was.
Yeah, I think I don't know how it is now because it's so hard to get in, but most of the entrepreneurs that I talked to on this podcast had to find a way to get in. And it was either through provisional or they transferred in. And that's okay too.
Yeah. Thankfully, the provisional program came down, made my 3.5 that summer, and here we go.
You were a Fiji and a Texas Cowboy.
I pledged Phi Gamma Delta in whatever that summer or in August, September. And then I was a Fiji, and then after whatever, I guess, that was 1984, and then in 1980, 84, 85, 56. In 1986, I got tapped into the Cowboys.
And I feel like that is such a strong network to be a part of.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a great. I mean, first of all, it's I think the greatest organization in UT history. Now, my wife, full disclosure, was the Silver Spur sweetheart. So I have to be respectful to all my Silver Spur buddies. But yeah, my dad was a Cowboy. Played football, but he was a Cowboy, and it's an amazing organization, and they did a lot of work, and it taught me a lot of probably lessons about service and doing things for others, really more so than maybe any organization I was involved in during the 4 years.
So what did you think you were going to do when you left UT?
Well, when I was at UT, I always loved business. I always have been intrigued, with corporations, companies, entrepreneurialism, brands. Thought at one point I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker. One of my fraternity brothers, a guy named Brett Robertson, he's one of the greatest investors of our time. And Brett, I never forget, it was the summer after my freshman year, and he was a year older than me, summer after our sophomore year, and we went and interviewed for an internship at Merrill Lynch with a guy that was my dad's, he was a Fiji, Mr. Greenfield. I thought, okay, I want to be a stockbroker. The same summer, so full disclosure, I clocked in May of 84, okay? And when it came time to May of 88, I had not quite completed all of the necessary requirements to graduate, okay? So, but I took that summer of 88 and I had 2 internship opportunities. And one of them was to go to Chicago I was going to work on the floor of the Chicago Board of Trade. I was going to be in the pits. I was going to learn soybeans, pork bellies, whatever. And I was going to be the king. And the other internship opportunity I had was to go to Washington, D.C. and work for a sports marketing agency in Georgetown called Advantage International. And I've always loved business, but I've always loved sports. And I was like, okay, I think instead of going to Chicago, I'm going to do the sports marketing internship in D.C. And I went up there that summer, and I was like, kind of like my experience at Roundup. I was like, yep, this is it.
It was that.
Here we go.
And so you graduated, and you immediately started.
Well, okay, so remember, I got a little unfinished business.
Yeah.
Okay, so I come back, and I had that internship, but I haven't graduated. So I come back in the fall of '89. Fall of '88, and I go down. I'll never forget. I go down to the liberal arts, to the counselor's office. I walked in. I sat down at this nice lady's desk, kind of like we are, and I looked at her and I said, "What do I have to do to get out of here?" Okay, and she said, "Well, John, you have to have 120 hours." And I was like, "Oh, perfect. I'm on pace for 140. I got like 145, I think, if I counted them all up." Now, she goes, "You have to have 120 hours that count towards your degree plan. So history, rock and roll is not going to get you a liberal arts economics degree." Oh, it's the greatest. It was one of my favorite classes, but it did not count towards a liberal arts economics degree. So I said, okay. And then she said, and you have to have a 2.0 GPA or above. And I was like, okay, I got it. I'm on it. Thank you. And and so I had 19 hours to finish. And I took, all these classes. And, when I graduated, I know you want to know if I failed a class, and I actually failed one. In honesty, I probably failed more, but I failed my last Spanish class, Spanish number 4. Okay. And so that's what kept me from getting my diploma in December of '88. But ended up getting it later at, UT Arlington. It transferred. I made an A, but it transferred in as a C. And as of August of 1989, I graduated the University of Texas with somewhere around 145, maybe 150 hours, of which history, rock and roll, a lot of fun electives, and a 2.000, I think 6. You had to go out a few decimal points, but
so you made it, though.
I made it,
and that's all that matters.
I made it.
You got the degree, and now it depends on what you do with it.
I got the piece of paper, and it is still sitting in a drawer, and I'm in my mother's house. So
so what was your first job out of college?
Well, okay, so right after I finished that last summer school class, because I kind of took the spring of '89 off. I thought I was going to be a professional gambler.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, went out to Vegas.
How'd that work out?
Well, the first few days it worked out great,
Sure.
And then towards the end of the week it started circling around. So that didn't work out. Kind of. Did a couple other time wasting things in the spring. Finally buckled down, got my degree. Moved to D.C. in '89, okay, August of '89. I graduated, my last Spanish credit. And I started working for a gentleman that I had interned with the summer of 1988. And he had left. His name is Ralph Stringer. And Ralph left Advantage, and he started his own agency, Stringer Marketing Group. He had Dan Marino was one of his clients, the Dolphins quarterback.
Sure.
He had, we had other athletes that we did marketing endorsements for. And we had corporate clients, Zubaz, these crazy striped pants, Budweiser. We did these 3-on-3 events. Anyway, so I was working for Ralph in '89 to '92. yeah, that was my first gig.
So what was it like being, 21, 22 and getting to be in close proximity with people like Dan Marino at the time?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, shoot, well, Danny was, he's a rock star. He was like, at the time, the mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s. I mean, he was Tom Brady and Tom Cruise, right?
Sure.
Especially in Florida. And so, and we had other, really my all-time hero. I mean, I've got a lot, but I'd say growing up as a kid, Roger Staubach, right?
Sure.
But then, the other one was a guy named Walter Payton. Okay. And I used to, anytime we did something with Walter, I would just, I would raise my hand. I go, Ralph, I'm flying to, wherever. I'm picking up I'm getting a rental car. I'm picking up Walter. I'm taking him to the event, the appearance, chaperone, and it was awesome. I mean, I was, just like a kid in a candy store. But, around 92, Ralph he was moving to South Florida from D.C. to be closer to, obviously Marino and other clients. And I knew I wanted to get back to Texas. And so I came back in 92. I got hired by an advertising agency in Dallas, and they wanted to create a sports marketing department inside the ad agency. And for my time dealing with the athletes and everything, I mean, listen, I love, Ralph and Danny are like Jerry Maguire and Rod Tidwell. I mean, they've been together for over 40 years. Okay. And, but I was kind of like, okay, I don't want to be a babysitter for, some young kid or professional athlete. We had done some different programs, and, back in that day, I mean, if I'm taking a commission off an athlete or getting paid, I got to come up with the idea and sell it to the company or the ad agency or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I think I kind of want to work on the buy side. Okay. I want to be closer to where the money is being originated.
Closer to the
clients.
To
the brands, to the corporate clients.
Yeah.
I wanted to be, I mean, they were making the decisions, in my opinion, whether it was some big corporation or whether it was a big ad agency. So I was like, yeah, I want to be over there.
And from that first job, what do you think you still take with you today that you learned from what sounds like a mentor?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I learned a lot, a lot of things. I mean, about, I think, besides, negotiating deals, being on that side of the table, right? And now I'm on the other side. I'm on the buy side. I was on the sell side. I was selling athletes, selling sponsorships for events. So I think understanding where the seller maybe is coming from, helped me to flip over to the other side to be a better consultant to corporate clients and brands, just understanding that landscape. Relationships. I mean, I tell our employees all the time, I mean, all revenue or opportunities that in business come from a relationship. Okay. I mean, there's a million CPAs, tax consultants, whatever. But if you have a friend or a relationship with somebody and you trust that person, like I do my CPA, you're going to be with them for life.
Yeah.
And I think if I don't want to speak for the, dozens of, chairman of PepsiCo, CEO of PepsiCo, CEO of Frito-Lay, CEO of Pepsi Beverages, that have been there and then gone and retired. But I've worked for them for over 32 years, if you count the years at Tracy Locke at the ad agency from 92 to 94. So, I think the main thing is they trust my guidance, counsel. They know that I'm not trying to sell them anything other than I'm trying to sell some PepsiCo products. I'm trying to sell some Frito-Lay salty snacks. And, and we've delivered, right? We've come up with strategies to, kick Coke out of the NFL and get Pepsi and Frito-Lay in, after Coke's been a partner of the NFL for 40, 45 years. Or we've come up with strategies to, Frito-Lay and PepsiCo Foods, they want to be involved in global football, in soccer, if you will, and the World Cup and all the excitement. So, how do we pierce what has been a 50-year relationship with Coca-Cola and FIFA to get PepsiCo Foods in? And Coke wasn't happy about that. But, our clients trust us, and we have their best interests at heart and always have and always will. And so I think it's those relationships. And that's all you can, whether it's a doctor, anybody that you are doing business with or having a transaction with.
Do you think that's teachable? Relationships, or that was just something that you've been good at since you were a kid?
Well, I mean, my parents got divorced in 1973. Okay, so I was 7.5 years old, and I've been good at kind of brokering mom and dad, or
since you were a kid,
for over 50 years. So I think that might be DNA or learned experience. But I think at the end of the day, if, I can think back over my career, guys that have retired from teams, a guy, Tony Quattrini, that worked for Art Rooney and the Steelers family forever. And he and I just had an open, honest relationship. And he was always on the sell side, we kicked Coke out of the Steelers. I mean, we killed the ghost of Mean Joe Green and got PepsiCo in the Steelers. And that was a relationship. Okay. So I think if I was telling anybody, that's out there, just, grow and build and establish your relationships almost more than anything, with the one exception of being a subject matter expert and bringing something to the table. And then just, always do the right thing and be honest and have integrity and ethics, and, it'll work.
Well, so let's go back. So you're in Dallas, you're working for this ad agency, you're developing their sports side, and then you decide to start your own Genesco Sports Enterprises. And so how old were you?
Let's see. I was 28.
Okay, 28, and you had a dream.
And my partner, I was 28, and my partner was 32. I had been at Tracy Locke maybe a year and a half, and had kind of worked in a couple of, and then Charlie, my business partner, he had worked in indoor soccer. He had worked for the Cowboys when Jerry and the Joneses first bought the team in 1989. He worked at a trading card company called ProSet, which was, kind of like a Panini or a Topps. And he came and interviewed at Tracy Locke, and they put the two of us together, and we were like two men in a truck, and we were little cube mates, and I think, it was a great relationship. And our parting, when we left in March of '94, our first client was Tracy Locke, was the agency.
Okay.
They put us on retainer. So it was a very amicable split. It's just, I kind of likened it to, and people don't remember this, but there was a time that Sears Roebuck owned, an insurance company called Allstate, and they owned a rental company called Budget Rental Car. Okay. And they owned a financial services advisory called Dean Witter. Okay. But that's not what they do, right? Sears Roebuck, they're, a watchmaker and a fixer, right? Yeah. Or they're in the retail industry. And those businesses spun out and they became uber successful. PepsiCo owned restaurants, okay?
Really? Back in the day?
Oh, yeah. PepsiCo owned Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC, Long John Silver's, and I think I'm drawing a blank. I think it was not Arby's, but it was like, it was another kind of, branded restaurant. They did okay. They did fine, but, PepsiCo is a convenient beverages and snack food company. And they go hand in glove. You start getting into restaurants and operating, it's a different animal. They spun them off into a company called Tricon, and then they ended up, it's Yum, the publicly traded company.
Yeah, based in Dallas.
But yeah, and so that's what I've always told people. Charlie and I were like, when Genesco spun out, we were just able to do our thing outside of whatever might have been confines of a traditional ad agency.
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily this huge, scary, we don't have any clients, how are we going to do this?
Hell, it was that. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. Absolutely. So, let's see. Charlie and I flew down, I'll never forget, Super Bowl 28. Super Bowl 28, Bills are playing the Cowboys in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Charlie and I fly down early. We're on the plane, and on the flight down, we had made the decision to, hey, we can spin off, start our own business. He's great. All right, here we go. We had a little American Airlines cocktail napkin. We're writing down our mission statement, right? It was our mission statement, 2 words, cash, checks. Okay, so we landed. We're going to do this. 2 days later, Charlie's wife comes down for the weekend to go to the game. And so, I'm driving the rental car, circling the parking lot. Charlie goes in to meet his wife at baggage claim, and he goes, hey, I've got some news. And she goes, well, I've got some news. And he goes, no, I got bigger news. And she goes, no, I got bigger news. And so he goes, okay, well, you go first. And she goes, I'm pregnant. And she tells him that after 11 years of marriage and, a lot of challenging attempts to start a family, that by the grace of God, they were given the blessing of their son. And so she goes, well, what's your news? And he goes, John and I are going to start a sports marketing agency.
We're quitting our job with insurance.
And we got no insurance. So, we're going to have to figure that out. And so Charlie, they get in the car and so I'm driving and Charlie was like, guess what? And I was like, what? And he goes, I told Debbie we're going to start an agency, and she told me we're going to have a child. And I was like, yeah, we ain't starting an agency. I go, nope, not happening. Cancel. I go, but credit to Debbie Turano. She was like, told Charlie, you've always wanted to start your own agency. And Charlie, credit to him, he said, hey, you know what? Like, this baby's not due for another, 6 months. If it doesn't work out, we're going to know in the first 3. So, we can always get a job. So, but we started, and I mean, it was like somebody had shot a bullet and we were trying to outrun it. I mean, we worked 6 days a week. I mean, really 7 days a week, and in various forms, and took just anything and everything. We had a base retainer from Tracy Locke. I had a little savings, so I didn't take a paycheck for like however many months, because I was like, man, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Let's just see how this goes. And then honestly, we picked up, I'll never forget, a couple months in, we picked up a project that summer, picked up a couple projects, picked up a project, and then we had a big project in December for the Orange Bowl, which was going to be January 1st, 1999. And when we got that project and we went through that first year, and then PepsiCo found out that they were paying Tracy Locke to pay us. And so they said, hey, we're just going to put them on as our agency direct. And really, I would say the first 9 months were nervous. Not that the next 29 years weren't, but once January and we had gotten through that, I was like, okay,
we have something.
Yeah, we got something.
And so Genesco Sports Enterprises, just for those who don't know, you say it in your words, but I don't want to explain it. So
yeah, I would say, kind of twofold. We're strategic sports marketing, consultancy, kind of like, a McKinsey or a BCG or Accenture or Bain, right? We're corporate consultants to brands, major corporations that want to invest in sports because they think it's important to their business, to differentiating their brand from their competitors, right? Because there can only be one fill in the blank of the NFL or the NBA or F1 or the University of Texas Longhorns or whatever. And then the second piece is, we're a sponsorship activation agency, because after you go through all of the rigor of identifying who they're trying to target, what their product or service is, and this is what is going to make them the best fit, right? Maybe it's high school football. Whataburger is a client; they've had a lot of success in high school. Maybe it's college sports. Whataburger's a sponsor in college, or maybe it's the NFL. Right. But you got to, after we've done all that, at the end of the day, you have to sell something. I mean, we got to sell Bud Light beer, the official beer of the University of Texas Longhorn Athletics. We got to sell, American Airlines tickets because, they're an official partner of UT Athletics.
And just so you're the reason, you're the one that has made those deals with the University of Texas. Like if you're at the school right now and you're like, okay, what have you done? It's kind of cool to say like, oh, John Tatum did that.
Yeah, well,
in Genesco.
John Tatum didn't do it, but maybe John Tatum might have been a while back. But yeah, I mean, typically, and so to further that, and that's a great point, is we are on exclusively the buy side of the transaction. Okay. And so we're sitting on the buy side of the transaction, representing the company, the brand, and we're sitting across the table from, CDC or Drew Martin or Learfield or Learfield, right? Learfield represents Longhorn Athletics. They're selling sponsorships. They're selling multimedia rights. And, we're representing, BMW or HEB or American Airlines or Bud Light or whoever, right? And that's a partner with UT.
So you got Pepsi early on.
Oh yeah, I mean the last time I think I've ever drank a Coke product was. April of 1992.
So even you will not be photographed with a competitor.
No, I try not to be, and I definitely try not to. Well, I 1,000% don't consume a competitive product, and I strongly try to avoid that.
Sure.
So that's why a lot of times I bring my cup because I can smuggle in my product, or I can put a generic.
Is that something you had to learn because you made a mistake once, or that's just something you've lived by?
No, not me. I'm just extremely loyal.
Okay.
I'm very loyal. I'm very brand loyal. I am I'm a chow. Okay, I'm a one owner dog, and I am I'm a SEAL Team 6.
Okay.
And when I sign up with a client, I'm trying to obliterate their competitors.
I think I relate to this because at the Longhorn Business Network, my job is to find Longhorn businesses, and so everything showing up on my house is Longhorn stuff.
Sure.
And my husband's like, I mean, you don't have to buy those cowboy boots, and I'm like, I do, because a Longhorn made them, and it's fun to, if I'm going to work with something, I want to believe it full on. It can be exhausting because it's kind of an emotional side of it all, but I want to be all in.
Well, and listen, the way I mean, I not to get too in the weeds, but we've had we have a client loyalty as part of our employee handbook, okay? And I don't come and go through everybody's refrigerator or pantry.
Sure.
But if you're on an airplane, and you're flying from New York to Jacksonville, Florida for the Super Bowl in 2005 and you're working, you know, on behalf of PepsiCo or whatever, well, you know, you need to plan ahead because if you're on Delta and they only serve Dasani water, then, you know, you got a couple options. You're going to go into the lavatory and cup your hands in the sink and hydrate yourself, or are you going to buy something, you know, because that's not our brand. And we actually, you know, I hate to say it, but we did terminate a young man because, you know, he didn't, you know, kind of sad, but true. But at the end of the day, look, in all honesty, every dollar, you know, that goes to buy a Anheuser-Busch product, okay, or a PepsiCo or Frito-Lay or, you know, pick Campbell's soup, okay, is $1 that goes to the bottom line and the stock and the 401ks of the people that are paying us. And it's that same dollar. So, you know, why am I going to give $1 to, you know, my competitor that, you know, it's not going to happen. And,
That's cool.
And as long as they're getting a paycheck from me, it's not going to happen for them either. So
I would assume you have been on the sidelines for every major sporting event.
I've been to, 31 Super Bowls.
Okay.
I've been to, I mean, multiple World Series and Ryder Cups and final March Madness Final Fours and, you know, All-Star games and the PGA. I mean, you know, I can't even really go back and list. I mean, it would be, you know, Game 7 of this Stanley Cup or whatever.
What, because you're in the sports business, what is like the hottest sport right now growing that y'all are looking into? Because this is the biggest opportunity right now.
I would say by far, you know, global football.
Okay.
Football, soccer,
yeah,
because it is the number one sport on the globe.
Okay.
And over the next, you know, starting this summer with this brand new event called the FIFA Club World Cup.
Okay.
And then next summer with the men's FIFA World Cup. And then in 2029, hopefully they'll do another Club World Cup, and it'll be exponentially bigger than anything because people will be more familiar with it. In 2031, the Women's World Cup most likely will be in the U.S. So I would say, you know, besides the growth of, you know, Major League Soccer and other, but I would say global football is probably the biggest investment opportunity. I mean, and this is coming from, you know, a guy that works for an agency that is by far the number one representative of NFL sponsors. You know, I mean, if you look at...
That's wild, by the way.
Well, I mean, we do have, you know, I mean, if you look at, you know, you can start at, you know, at the league level, whether it's, you know, A for Applebee's or C for Campbell's Soup or, you know, AB for Anheuser-Busch or B for Bud Light, whatever you want to call it, or, you know, L for Little Caesars or L for Lowe's or P for Pepsi or, you know, Frito-Lay or, you know, Sleep Number Beds, Wilson, the official football, you know, Visa, the official payment system partner.
All those companies.
And Verizon, right? So I can go A to V.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we represent 12, 14 clients. And that's not including the ones that, you know, are regional clients, right?
Yeah.
Like an American Airlines may have a deal with the Rams and the Cowboys and the, you know, blah, 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 right? Or you know, grocery partners are all kind of regional. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a huge fan, you know, obviously of the NFL, but I'm a huge fan of college football. I'm a huge fan of high school football. I have a freshman son as my youngest. He just turned 16, and you know, driving to school. You know, I'm a little nervous, but you know, he loves high school football in Highland Park, and so I love all sports. I love NBA. You know, everything. But I would say if I was looking at growth investment opportunities, I would say global sports of of soccer, but I'll tell you what, I went to a cricket tournament
Oh, they have
match.
huge.
And that would be second.
Okay.
Would be cricket.
Well, I just think it's really cool as we get to highlight different Longhorns to think that we all started here on the 40 acres and to know what's possible. And it's pretty cool thinking you were in your 20s and you went off with your friend and you guys created an agency that is now representing all of those brands that are not, that are all our household brands that we're talking about in our everyday lives. And that's pretty cool to know that you're a Longhorn.
Well, hey, a Longhorn 100.
And you are also on a Longhorn 100 list, our very first year, which is our list of fastest growing companies. Well, okay, we're going to just finish up with this.
Yep.
So, favorite spot for food on or around campus when you were here as
Oh,
a
God,
student?
when I was here, that's hard. Okay. I mean, I'm at the Fiji house, so I just come out, go down Guadalupe a couple blocks, and I'm at, Dirty's for a comeback burger. There was Mad Dog and Beans over on 26 and a half, and then the one that kills me, well, GM Steakhouse. How did that who let that get torn down? And then the other one is Huts. What the hell? Who closed Huts?
What's the deal with GM Steakhouse? Because it was not around when I was here.
GM Steakhouse was just the place for burgers.
Okay.
And just, it was right there at the corner. It was across from another restaurant that's closed called the Nighthawk Cafe that my dad took me to. And so there were so many places. But and I don't know, Katz's Deli. Katz's never closes. That was a big late night spot. Matt's El Rancho.
Sure.
But I'd say now the two that I've gone to that are here now that my daughter and I love, and my wife, just because it's not Mom's weekend, but we love Joanne's Fine Foods. Yeah. Amazing breakfast, and also we neighborhood sushi.
Oh,
it's a good
cool.
sushi restaurant.
Owned by a Longhorn.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
So what is your advice for someone starting UT as a freshman?
Starting UT as a freshman, I would say expose yourself to as much as possible. Life is like a big buffet, right? Like Mother's Day buffet, Easter buffet, and you got to sample everything before you really know what you want to go back for, like the crab claws or the shrimp or the prime fillet, So I would say you got to get exposed to as much as possible. And, I tell this to kids that are coming out. I say, get an internship. Go down there and bang on Bianco's door and go work in the SID office.
No, don't bang on my door.
Yeah, and I'll give you his number. No, I won't do that. And but go volunteer, go work for Learfield, or go get exposed. And that's more sports oriented. But you got to get exposed to everything, because it's not until you've done something that you know that you don't like it. And the quicker you can identify your passion, the faster you are on the train track to success. I was asked to speak at some liberal arts, economics. No, was it sports entertainment? I can't remember. I've come down to a couple of things, and I was on a panel. And I was on a panel with three other guys. There's a multi-billionaire entrepreneur guy, really amazing guy, Benny Bray. He's done a lot of businesses. And there's some guy in the oil and gas business. He's probably a good billionaire. And I don't know, some other guy, real estate guy. And me. And so, we go through, and they say, well, what class did you take, at McCombs, or, Plan 2, honors, or, whatever. And I said, well, honestly, look, I love my Eco 101 class. I love that. I took history of rock and roll. But the three things that I hate to say it, because I'm not going to get invited back to the alumni dinner at the liberal arts, but I was my biggest career achievement here was not academic. I was the A-team champion in 1986 of the intramural football. The Fijis, Phi Gamma Delta. If you go to Gregory Gym, you'll see my picture up on the wall. 1986. We beat the Legal Eagles, Charles Allen Wright. I mean, unbelievable. And so, that taught me teamwork, right? And do your job. If you just do your job, just like, Bill Belichick says, a great friend of Gil Brandt, who I met because of like Highland Park High School. Just do your job.
Yeah.
And you'll succeed as a team. Second thing is, I gambled. We kind of talked about that. I played a lot of poker, and that taught me how to read people. Okay.
Fair.
And so, helped me kind of in negotiations. And then, last but not least, I was a rush captain for the Fijis one summer. And so that kind of taught me the art of selling, because I was selling, Phi Gamma Delta or be a Fiji versus be a SAE or a Delt or a Phi Delt or ATO. And so that taught me the art of selling. So, I hate to say it, I can tell you a couple classes I remember, and I can tell you a couple classes I would suggest you take if you wanted to have that experience. But I think the biggest thing is, it truly is. I mean, as I asked a billionaire owner one time, I said, what is it about you? Do you have 3 eyes? Do you have 2 brains?
What made you get to this level?
Exactly. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and, because I said, what is it about you, or Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or John McCain or, and he said one thing. And I sat and he said, passion. And I said, okay. Find your passion, and the way you do that is to expose yourself to as many jobs and opportunities as possible. And the quicker you find your passion, then you're on your track to success.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. That was awesome. And hook 'em horns.
All right, hook 'em horns. Thank you.